Historical Timeline by Julia Gamble. 1954 Brown v. Board of Education. Brown v. Board of Education was a Supreme Court case that ruled racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. Brown v. Board of Education was significant because it started the change that was needed for English learning language students to be recognized in the public school system. 1965 Elementary Secondary Education Act. This act was distributed funds to schools and school districts that had a high percentage of students from low-income families. This was enacted while President Lyndon B. Johnson was president. It was a part of his plan to end the war on poverty. Its significance to English learning language students is like the Brown v. Board of Education. It was an important event that started the chain leading to the progression of education for English learning language learners. 1968 Bilingual Education Act. This act was an addition to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. It was designed to make students who were poor or at a disadvantage from language barriers completely literate in English. This was the United States' first action taken to directly assist English learning language students. The Title IX provided resources to support the educational program, such as training teachers and aides to learn and develop and disseminate instructional materials. It also encouraged parental involvement. Its significance to the English learning language students was that it was the beginning of what became known as the bilingual movement. 1973. The states of Texas and Illinois passed laws that required districts to offer bilingual education under certain circumstances. Its significance to English learning language students was that the states were starting to recognize and take action, which benefited the students because they were beginning to have resources to support their English learning language needs. 1974 Serna v. Perales Municipal Schools. This was a lawsuit filed by Mexican American parents in New Mexico. This was the first court mandate for bilingual education. The judge had ruled that instruction in the children's native language and culture as part of the desegregation process. Its significance to ELL students was that it was impactful because 2 years after the case, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Hispanic students had the right to a bilingual education. 1974 Law v. Nichols. A lawsuit was filed in 1970 by a San Francisco poverty lawyer when he heard that one of his Chinese clients' children was falling behind in school because he couldn't understand the language that was given to them. He alleged that English learning students were being denied education on equal terms, which was a standard placed by Brown v. Board of Education. In 1974, the Supreme Court ruled that the students were in fact being denied of their rights to a fair education and that the sink or swim method was no longer acceptable. Its significance to English learning language students was that the actions taken after this case gave districts guidelines on how to identify and evaluate English learning language students. It provided professional standards to teachers that they could meet and instructional treatments for ELL students. 1974 Equal Education Opportunities Act. The Equal Education Opportunities Act is a federal law that prohibited discrimination against any students, faculty, and staff in a school district. Its significance to English learning language students is that it required schools to invest their time and resources, which benefited ELL students greatly. (1981) Castaneda versus Pickard. Within a Texas school district, students who were Mexican Americans were being grouped together, which did not favor English learning language students. Parents became enraged that their children's rights, defined in the Civil Rights Act and the Equal Educational Opportunities Act, were being denied. Its significance to English learning language students was that the course case set a three-pronged test for school districts nationwide. It must be based on a sound educational theory. It must be implemented effectively with adequate resources and personnel. And after a trial period, it must be evaluated as effective in overcoming language handicaps. (1982) U.S. versus Texas. In 1975, Texas legislature made it to where school districts were able to deny any illegal child on their school district from attending, and the state could hold back the money being sent to these districts to educate English learning language students. U.S. versus Texas ruled that these actions went against the 14th Amendment, equal protection, and that Texas needed to follow the U.S. laws because it applied to all people. Its significance to English learning language students was that though the Supreme Court ruled that all children, including people who are illegal, have the right and must be given a free K-12 education. This is my citation page. Thank you.